The night I told my roommate I'd just gotten back from a date, I expected her to make fun of my shirt, ask if I talked too much, and then pretend she hadn't waited up. Instead, Sienna Hart looked at me from our kitchen table and said, "She can't love you like I do." Too fast, too clearly, like the sentence had been sitting behind her teeth for months and slipped out before pride could catch it. My name is Nolan Pierce. I was 24, finishing my last semester at a university in Ann Arbor, and by then I had been living with Sienna for almost 2 years in a second-floor apartment that smelled permanently like coffee, rain, and whatever our downstairs neighbor burned every Thursday night. We weren't supposed to become close. We were supposed to split rent. That was the original arrangement. Her old roommate moved out mid-lease. My student housing fell through after a paperwork error. A mutual friend said, "You're both responsible adults," which turned out to be the kind of lie people tell when they don't want to help you move. So, I moved into the spare room. Sienna made rules on the first night. No dishes in the sink overnight, no loud calls after midnight, no touching her oat milk, no pretending store-brand coffee was acceptable. I made one rule: no labeling my leftovers with moral judgments. She looked at the container in my hand and said, "Then stop leaving pasta in there long enough to develop a legal identity." That was Sienna. Sharp, organized, funny when she didn't mean to be, brutal when she did. She was 23, a senior in urban planning, and the kind of person who could color code a semester schedule so beautifully it made you ashamed of your own existence. Dark hair, usually clipped up with a pencil, oversized sweaters, focused brown eyes, and a habit of looking at people like she was trying to understand what they were hiding from themselves. At first, we irritated each other. Then we irritated each other with timing. Then, somewhere between shared grocery lists, late-night study sessions, broken heaters, finals panic, and one awful week where I had the flu, and she left soup outside my door without admitting it was kindness, irritation became routine. Routine became comfort. Comfort became dangerous. I didn't call it that then. I called it friendship, because friendship was safer and because men in their 20s are very talented at mislabeling emotional dependence if rent is involved. By spring semester, our lives had become tangled in ways I pretended were normal. She knew I took my coffee too dark because my father made it that way. I knew she only played music while cleaning when she was stressed. She knew I hated being called potential because it sounded like a polite word for unfinished. I knew she checked apartment listings in other cities late at night and closed the laptop whenever I came into the room. Graduation was 6 weeks away. That was the thing neither of us talked about. After graduation, I had a job offer in Chicago at a civil engineering firm. Sienna had interviews in Seattle, Boston, and Denver, though she only admitted that after I saw 3 different weather apps open on her phone. Everything in our apartment had started feeling temporary. The mugs, the couch, the stupid crooked lamp we kept saying we'd replace, the two of us. Maybe that was why I said yes when Madison from my environmental policy seminar asked if I wanted to get dinner. Madison was nice. That was the word. Nice. Pretty, smart, easy to talk to, and clearly interested in a way that should have made me feel lucky. Instead, all through dinner, I kept noticing things I had no business comparing. Madison laughed softly. Sienna laughed like she had lost a legal argument with joy and hated it. Madison asked what kind of work I wanted to do after graduation. Sienna already knew I wanted to design infrastructure that didn't abandon poor neighborhoods the second budgets got tight. Madison said, "That's impressive." Sienna would have said, "That sounds exhausting. Eat something before you save democracy through drainage systems." So when the date ended and Madison hugged me outside the restaurant, I knew I should have felt something clearer than guilt. I got home a little after 11. The apartment lights were mostly off, except for the kitchen. Sienna sat at the table in pajama pants and an old university sweatshirt surrounded by open notebooks, a laptop, and one mug of tea she had definitely reheated twice. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, which meant she had either been working too long or thinking too hard. She looked up when I came in, then looked at my shirt. "Bold choice," she said. I glanced down. "What's wrong with it?" "It says, 'I want her parents to trust me, but not her friends.'" I laughed, taking off my coat. "Nice to see you too." "How was it?" There it was. Too casual. Far too casual. I opened the fridge because looking directly at her suddenly felt like stepping too close to a ledge. Fine. Fine? Good. Good is worse than fine. How is good worse than fine? Fine means nothing happened. Good means you're editing. I closed the fridge without taking anything out. She watched me over the rim of her mug. I leaned against the counter. It was nice. Her face did something small. So small, I almost missed it. But I knew Sienna too well by then. Nice, she repeated. Yeah. Do you want to see her again? That question should have been simple. The answer should have been simple. Instead, the kitchen felt too quiet. I don't know, I said. Sienna looked down at her notes. That's not a no. No, her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. That tiny movement did more to me than it should have. I tried to lighten it. Why? Are you worried she'll steal your unpaid emotional support roommate? Sienna didn't smile. That was when I knew something had shifted. She stood and carried her mug to the sink, even though it was still half full. Her back was to me when she said, "Maybe she'd be good for you." Maybe. She probably doesn't argue about groceries. No. She probably doesn't leave notes on your leftovers. She seems more merciful. She probably thinks your career plan is impressive. I paused. Her voice had changed. Not angry, worse, careful. I pushed away from the counter. Sienna. She turned then, and whatever joke I had ready disappeared. Her eyes were bright, not crying, not yet. Just too honest for the hour. What? Why are you doing that? Doing what? Listing reasons she might be better than you? She laughed once, but it came out wrong. I'm not. You are. No, I'm being realistic. No, I took one step closer. You're being cruel to yourself and calling it realism. That hit her. I saw it land. For a second, she looked like she wanted to argue. Like every version of us depended on her making this into another kitchen fight about tone or timing or my inability to load the dishwasher correctly. But she didn't. She just looked at me and whispered, "She can't love you like I do." The apartment went silent. Completely silent. Even the old refrigerator seemed to stop humming for half a second. Sienna's face changed the instant she heard herself, like she had opened a door by accident and found both of us standing on the other side. I stared at her. She looked away first. I didn't mean, yes, you did. Her eyes came back to mine. I heard my own voice go quieter. You meant it. She swallowed once. And the worst part was not that she had said it. The worst part was realizing how badly I wanted her to say it again. Sienna did not say it again. Of course she didn't. The second the words left her mouth, every part of her seemed to rush into damage control. Her shoulders went rigid, her chin lifted, her eyes sharpened like she could still turn this into an argument if she moved fast enough. I said that wrong, she said. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. Sienna. No, she pointed at me, which would have been more effective if her hand wasn't shaking. Do not do that. Do what? Say my name like you're about to be emotionally reasonable. I can't handle emotionally reasonable right now. That almost made me smile. Almost. But her face stopped me. Because the humor was still there, but barely. It was hanging by one thread over something much bigger. I stayed where I was, halfway between the counter and the table, close enough for the room to feel charged, far enough not to corner her. What did you mean? I asked. She let out a breath that sounded more like frustration than fear. I meant I'm tired. That's not what you meant. It can be several things. You said she can't love me like you do. I know what I said. Then don't pretend it was grammar. Her eyes flashed. Fine, you want the humiliating version? No, that caught her. I softened my voice. I want the honest version. The kitchen light hummed faintly above us. Outside rain tapped against the living room window, the same thin spring rain that had been making Ann Arbor feel like one long unfinished thought for weeks. Sienna crossed her arms, then uncrossed them, like she couldn't find a posture that didn't reveal too much. I didn't mean to say it like that. she said at last. I didn't mean to say it at all. But you meant it. She looked down. That was answer enough. I sat slowly in the chair across from where she had been working. Her notebooks were still open. Diagrams, city maps, housing policy notes, her handwriting in the margins. Neat until it got angry. She stayed near the sink. You came home from a date, she said quietly. You looked disappointed and guilty, and like you were about to convince yourself that nice is enough because leaving soon makes everything else inconvenient. I stared at her. That was the problem with Sienna. She didn't just know me, she knew the version of me I tried to hide from myself. And I thought, she continued, voice smaller now, there she is. The girl who gets the version of you that tries, the clean shirt, the good restaurant, the careful questions, the maybe I should see her again because that's what normal people do. Sienna, and I'm here, she said, cutting me off, but not sharply this time. In pajama pants, with reheated tea, knowing you forgot to eat lunch because your Wednesday lab ran over, knowing you hate mushrooms but pretend you don't when someone cooks for you, knowing you panic when people say you're talented because you think they're about to expect something from you. I had no defense against any of that. Her eyes lifted, and I hated her for not knowing any of it. The words hit the room and stayed there. Sienna closed her eyes immediately, like that one had gone too far. I'm not proud of that. You don't have to be proud for it to be true. She laughed once, softly and miserably. That sounds like something I'd say. I learned from a difficult woman. Terrible teacher. Effective. The corner of her mouth moved, but the smile didn't survive. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket on the bar chair. Neither of us moved. Then it buzzed again. Sienna looked at the coat. Madison? She asked. I didn't answer fast enough. She nodded, almost to herself. Right. I took the phone out. Madison had sent 2 messages. I had a nice time tonight. No pressure, but I'd like to see you again before graduation if you want. Nice. That word again. A good word, a safe word. A word that suddenly felt unfair to everyone involved. Sienna watched my face. You should answer her. I will. Now. No, her eyes narrowed. Don't make me the reason you become rude. You're not. I am if you sit here not answering because I said something reckless. I set the phone face down on the table. I'm not answering because I don't know how to do it honestly yet. That quieted her. For a second, she looked like she wanted to argue. Then she sank into the chair across from me like her legs had finally decided the night was too heavy. I don't want to be your reason for hurting someone, she said. You're not. I might be. No, I said. The truth might be. That's different. She looked at me then and something in her expression softened, not relief. Recognition. Maybe because that was what both of us had been avoiding all semester. Truth. And the damage it causes when it arrives late. I looked around the kitchen, the ugly apartment, the chipped mug, her notebooks, my coat, the rain, all the ordinary things we had built a life around while pretending it was temporary. When did this start? I asked. Sienna stared at the table. That is a dangerous question. I know. For you or for me? Yes. That got the smallest laugh out of her. Then she reached for her tea, remembered she had dumped it out, and folded her hands instead. I don't know, she said. Not exactly. Maybe when you had the flu and kept pretending you weren't dying because you didn't want to ask for help. I was very brave. You were disgusting. Also true. I left soup at your door, and you texted me, Wooby, did you poison this or am I allowed to be grateful? Her mouth softened. I remember standing in my room smiling at my phone like an idiot. I remembered that text. I remembered reading her answer. Both. Eat it anyway. I remembered feeling less alone. And then? I asked. And then nothing, she said. Because you were my roommate and my friend. And the person who made the apartment feel less like a lease and more like… She stopped. Like what? Her voice dropped. Like home. That word changed everything more than the confession had. Love was dangerous. Home was worse. I looked at her, and for once I didn't want to make the sentence easier. I thought it was just me, I said. Sienna froze. I hadn't planned to say it that way. Maybe that was why it worked. Her eyes lifted slowly. What? I thought I was the only one making too much out of grocery runs and broken heaters. She stared at me. You never said anything, she whispered. Neither did you. I had a reason. So did I. What reason? I looked toward the living room where the crooked lamp leaned beside the couch like it had been listening to us for 2 years. Because if I was wrong, I said, I didn't just lose a girl. I lost my favorite place to come home to. Sienna's face changed. That was the first time she looked truly close to crying. Not because she was hurt, because she understood exactly. My phone buzzed again. This time I picked it up. Sienna looked away, but I said, Don't. She turned back. I typed slowly. Madison, I had a good time, but I don't think I'm in the right place to keep dating. I'm sorry. You deserve more clarity than I can offer right now. I sent it before I could overeat it courage into cowardice. Sienna watched the screen go dark. Then she whispered, You didn't have to do that tonight. Yes, I said, I did. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stood too quickly. I should go to bed. Sienna. No, she gave me a shaky smile. If we keep talking tonight, I'm either going to say too much or ask for something I'm not ready to ask for. What if I want you to ask? Her breath caught. Just once. Then she looked at me like I had opened another door. Nolan, she said softly, I already said yes too fast once tonight. And before I could answer, she walked down the hall and closed her bedroom door. Not slammed, closed. Which somehow felt worse, because for the first time in 2 years, the wall between our rooms felt like something both of us wanted to cross. The next morning, Sienna acted normal. That was terrifying. She was in the kitchen before me, already dressed, hair clipped up with a pencil, standing barefoot by the stove while eggs hissed in the pan and coffee dripped into the pot. Your alarm went off for 9 minutes, she said without turning around. Good morning. It became a community issue. I was processing. You were sleeping through consequences. There it was, our rhythm. Sharp, familiar, almost convincing. I leaned against the doorframe and watched her move around the kitchen like nothing had happened. Like she had not told me no one else could love me the way she did. Like I had not ended a potential second date at midnight because the truth had finally gotten tired of waiting for permission. She slid eggs onto 2 plates. 2. That small detail hit me harder than it should have. She noticed me noticing. Don't make the eggs symbolic, she said. I wasn't. You looked at them like they were holding hands. I laughed despite myself. Then the laugh faded, because her face did too. For a second, the whole kitchen felt like the night before had walked back in and pulled up a chair. I sat at the table, she put a plate in front of me, then sat across from me with her own, exactly where she had sat last night, exactly where she had said the sentence that had changed the apartment. We ate quietly for almost a minute. Then I said, Madison replied. Sienna's fork stopped. What did she say? That she appreciated the honesty. That's it? And that she hopes I figure out whatever I'm avoiding. Sienna stared at her plate. She sounds smart. She is? That hurt her. I saw it. Not because she was jealous, exactly. Because smart made Madison real. Kind made her real. It's easier to stand beside a truth when nobody innocent gets bruised by it. I set my fork down. I didn't end it because of guilt. Sienna looked up. I ended it because continuing would have been dishonest, I said. That part is mine. Her mouth tightened, but not defensively this time. Okay, she whispered. That was all. But it was enough for breakfast to become possible again. Afterward, we tried to go about the day like 2 adults with deadlines. I had a senior capstone presentation at noon. She had a final planning studio critique at 2. The apartment became a strange little machine of avoidance. She printed maps, I ironed a shirt, she hunted for her presentation drive. I pretended I didn't know exactly where she always left it. On the table, under her laptop, was a folder I hadn't seen before. Seattle Urban Fellows. Final placement packet. I looked at it for 1 second too long. Sienna came out of the hallway and saw my face. The whole room changed. You weren't supposed to see that. That seems to be happening a lot lately. She crossed the room and picked it up too quickly. It's nothing. Sienna? It's an interview packet. For Seattle? For a fellowship. When? She looked toward the window. That answered before she did. Tomorrow morning, she said. I stared at her. You have a final fellowship interview tomorrow morning and you didn't tell me? I didn't know how. How long have you known? A week? A week. The same week she had watched me go on a date? The same week I had caught her closing weather apps? The same week our apartment had started feeling like a countdown neither of us wanted to name? I tried to keep my voice even. Were you going to go? I don't know. That's not an answer. No, Nolan, it's the only honest one I have. She held the folder against her chest. It's a good program. It's exactly the kind of work I said I wanted. Affordable housing policy, transit access, community planning, the whole thing. Then why wouldn't you go? She looked at me like I had asked the cruelest simple question in the world. Because if I go, she said, then this apartment becomes past tense. I didn't have an answer ready. That was probably good. She continued before I could say something brave and useless. And if I don't go, I need to know it's because I chose something real, not because I got scared of losing you after 2 years of pretending I didn't already have you. That sentence stayed in the room. Heavy, accurate, dangerous. I stood slowly. You have to take the interview? Her face closed. Of course you'd say that. No, listen to me. I crossed the kitchen, stopping far enough away that it still had to be at her choice. You have to take the interview because future you will hate both of us if you don't. Not because you're leaving. Not because I want you gone. Because I don't want to become the reason your life got smaller right before it was supposed to open. Her eyes brightened. I hate that answer, she whispered. I know. I wanted you to be selfish. I am being selfish. My voice dropped. I want you to go to that interview and still come back knowing this is real. That's terrifyingly selfish. She laughed once and it almost broke. Then she stepped closer. Not into my arms. Not yet. Just close enough that the apartment felt too small for all the things we were not doing. My flight is at 6:10, she said. To Seattle? She nodded. I was going to take a rideshare. No, you weren't. Her eyes lifted. I swallowed once. I'll drive you. Nolan. I'll drive you because I want you to go, and I'll pick you up when you come back because I want you to come home. That was the word. Home. Again. Only this time, neither of us looked away from it. For a second, I thought she might cry. Instead, she smiled in a way I had never seen from her before. Not sharp, not guarded, not sarcastic, almost shy. You're getting dangerously good at staying in difficult conversations. I had a terrible teacher. Effective? Unfortunately. Her smile trembled. Then she looked down at the folder, and when she looked back up, the fear was still there, but so was Wasit. Something else. A decision. Okay, she said. Drive me. And suddenly, the problem was no longer whether she loved me. It was whether we were mature enough not to turn that love into a cage right when the door opened. I drove Sienna to the airport before sunrise. Neither of us had slept much. At 5 in the morning, the apartment had that strange, quiet buildings get when everyone inside is still dreaming and only the people with early flights, bad decisions, or big futures are awake. Sienna stood by the door with one carry-on, a canvas tote, and the Seattle folder pressed against her chest like it might try to escape. You packed too much, I said. You don't know what I packed. You packed 3 versions of the same cardigan because you think weather is a moral test. She looked offended. Seattle has layers. Seattle has stores. spoken like a man who once wore the same hoodie for 4 consecutive finals. It was a good hoodie. It was a biohazard. Good. We could still do this. We could still argue on the morning her life might split open. That helped more than either of us said. The drive was mostly dark highway, wet pavement, and headlights moving like quiet decisions ahead of us. Sienna sat in the passenger seat, one knee pulled up, looking out the window with the folder in her lap. Halfway there, she said, "You don't have to be this good about it." I kept my eyes on the road. About what? Potentially losing me to a city you've never liked? I don't dislike Seattle. You once said it looked like a beautiful place to develop vitamin D deficiency. That was a weather observation. That was slander. I smiled, but she didn't. So I let the joke die. Sienna, I said, I'm not losing you because you take an interview. You might if I get it. No. I glanced at her, then back at the road. I might lose the version of this where we pretend nothing has to change. But that version was already ending. She looked at me then. The silence after that was different, less defensive, more honest. At the terminal, I parked instead of dropping her at the curb. She noticed. You're coming in? I'm not sending you into a major life decision from the departures lane. That was almost sweet. I'll recover. Inside, the airport was all rolling suitcases, bad coffee, and people wearing exhaustion like a uniform. We stood near security for too long because neither of us wanted to be the first one to make the goodbye reel. Sienna adjusted the strap of her tote. I watched her do it. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She frowned. What's that? Emergency document. Her eyes narrowed. Nolan. It's not weird. That means it's weird. I handed it to her. She unfolded it slowly. It was a list. Not romantic, not dramatic, just practical. Her interview time. The address, the transit route from the airport, a nearby cafe with good reviews, 2 backup lunch places because she forgot to eat when nervous, the number for campus visitor services, a reminder that her laptop charger was in the front pocket of her bag because she would absolutely panic and think she forgot it. At the bottom, I had written, "You are allowed to want this. You are allowed to come back. Both can be true." Sienna stared at the page. For once, no comment came. Her eyes filled so fast she looked away. Don't, she whispered. Don't what? Be the exact person I needed right now. It's rude. I laughed quietly. Then she folded the paper with too much care and put it in her folder. The boarding announcement for her flight came over the speakers. Not final call, not urgent. Still, both of us looked towards security. Sienna turned back to me. I meant it, she said. I knew what she meant. The kitchen, the sentence. The one that had started everything and ruined every easy lie we had left. I know. Her voice got smaller. I don't know what happens after this. Neither do I. I hate that. I know. I like plans. You love plans. I make excellent plans. You do. She looked up at me then, and the whole airport seemed to move around us without touching the moment. I don't have one for you, she whispered. That was the most vulnerable thing she had said yet. Not the confession, not home. This, because Sienna could map a city, organize a semester, design a housing model, and anticipate 5 different versions of a bureaucratic disaster before breakfast. But she did not know how to plan for loving someone and leaving for the right reasons at the same time. I stepped closer. Not too much. Enough. Then don't make one today, I said. Go to Seattle. Be brilliant. Ask hard questions. Eat before your interview. Decide if the program is right for you because of the work, not because of me. I took a breath. And when you come back, I'll be here. She looked at me like she was trying not to believe it too quickly. You promise? Yes. That's dangerous. I know. Her mouth trembled into a smile. Then she reached for my hand. Just that. Her fingers around mine in the middle of a terminal full of strangers who didn't know we had spent 2 years mistaking love for roommate etiquette. I wanted you to ask me to stay, she said. I know. But I think I needed you to let me go more. That one hurt. In the right place. I nodded. Go. She squeezed my hand once, then let go before either of us could make it harder. I watched her disappear through security with my note in her folder and my entire chest, feeling like it had been rearranged without a permit. The apartment felt wrong when I got back. Not empty exactly. Accused. Her mug was still in the sink. Her sweater was over the back of the chair. Her planning notes had left faint pencil dust on the kitchen table. Evidence everywhere that she had been there and might leave. I spent the day badly. I tried to work on my capstone revisions and read the same paragraph 12 times. I took a walk and ended up buying the tea she liked, which was either hopeful or pathetic. Maybe both. At 4:30, my phone buzzed. Sienna, interview done. I stared at it, then she sent another message. They offered me the fellowship. I sat down slowly. Pride came first, then fear, then pride again, bigger. I typed, of course they did. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. My flight lands at 10:40. I wrote back, I'll be I there, say. At 10:40, her flight was delayed. At 11:10, it landed. At 11:30, she walked through arrivals with her carry-on, tired eyes, and my folded note sticking out of the front pocket of her folder. I stood. She saw me. For a second, she stopped completely. Then she walked straight toward me. No sarcasm, no shield, no pretending this was just a ride. When she reached me, she said, I want it. My throat tightened. The fellowship? Yes. Good. And you? The airport noise seemed to fall backward. She stepped closer, eyes bright and terrified. I want Seattle. I want the work. I want the version of me that gets on planes for things she earned. Her voice shook. And I want to come home to you. I don't know how that works yet, but I'm done pretending one truth cancels out the other. That was the moment. Not a perfect solution, not a neat ending, a choice. Messy, adult, frightening, and real. I reached for her hand. You don't have to know how tonight. She let out a shaky laugh. You keep saying things that make it hard to argue. I'm sure you'll recover. I will. Good. She looked at me for one long second. Then she whispered, Take me home, Nolan. And this time, neither of us pretended she only meant the apartment. Part 5. I took her home. Not dramatically, not with music swelling or rain hitting the windshield like the universe had hired a lighting department. Just the two of us in my car after midnight, Sienna in the passenger seat with a fellowship offer in her bag, my note still tucked inside her folder, and the apartment waiting for us like it had been holding its breath all day. For once, neither of us filled the silence with arguments. That was how I knew the silence mattered. When we got upstairs, the apartment looked exactly the same as it had that morning. Her mug in the sink, my jacket on the chair, the crooked lamp leaning like it had strong opinions. 2 lives still tangled in ordinary evidence. Sienna stopped just inside the door. I closed it behind us. She looked around, then whispered, I'm leaving in August. I know. For a year. I know. And you're going to Chicago. Probably. She turned to me, Sis. Probably? My offer starts in September, but they have a Midwest infrastructure. Rotation. 6 months in Chicago, then remote project options. I hadn't asked about them because I thought the adult thing was to act like I wanted the cleanest path. And now? Now I think the adult thing is asking better questions. Her face softened, not because it solved everything, because I was finally treating the future like something we could talk about instead of a wall we had to crash into silently. She set her folder on the table. I don't want you rearranging your life for me, she said. I don't want you shrinking yours for me. Good. Good. We both almost smiled. There we were, in love apparently, still negotiating like hostile committee members. Then Sienna stepped closer and said, I need to tell you something without making it sound clever. That sounds dangerous for you. I know, I'm being very brave. I smiled, but my chest tightened. She looked down once, then back at me. I didn't just mean she couldn't love you like I do, she said. I meant no one has watched you become yourself the way I have. No one has seen you at 3 in the morning with bad coffee and panic notes and still thought, yes, him. No one has heard you talk about drainage systems like they're love letters to people who never get listened to. No one has lived in the boring, ugly, ordinary parts of your life and wanted more of them. I could not answer. Not immediately, because that was the sentence under the sentence. Not jealousy, not possession, recognition. She took another breath. And I know that sounds arrogant. No, I said, it sounds like you. Her eyes brightened. I stepped closer. I went on that date because I thought maybe wanting you was just proximity, I said. Roommate confusion, end of college panic, fear of change wearing perfume. Sienna's mouth moved. That is a very specific diagnosis. I've had a long day. And? And then I sat across from someone kind, attractive, and normal. And all I could think was that she didn't know which mug you use when you're pretending you're not stressed. Sienna laughed, but it broke at the end. I kept going. She didn't know you leave the last bite of dessert because you claim it gives the meal narrative tension. She didn't know you reread emails out loud when you're scared to send them. She didn't know that this apartment only became home after you started insulting my coffee. Her eyes were fully wet now. So, yes, I said, you were right. She looked at me. No one can love me like you do. For once, Sienna had no comeback. I reached for her hand. She let me. Then she looked at our hands, almost like she didn't trust something so simple to be real. Are we about to ruin our lease? She whispered. Probably. Good. And then she kissed me. Not like a confession exploding, not like a goodbye, like the answer had been waiting inside 2 years of arguments, grocery lists, broken heaters, shared deadlines, and every quiet night we were both too scared to name. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, I still want Seattle. I still want you to want Seattle. I still want you. I'm counting on that. She smiled. Confident. Terrified. Better. We did not become easy overnight. That mattered. Graduation came 3 weeks later. My mother cried. Sienna's parents took too many photos. My sister met Sienna and later pulled me aside to say, so that's why you've been emotionally unavailable to normal women. Subtlety was not a family strength. In August, Sienna moved to Seattle. I drove her to the airport again, but this time we didn't pretend we were only roommates facing a logistics problem. She kissed me at security, then she pointed at me and said, do not become noble and distant. I hate that genre. I'll be annoying and consistent. Excellent. Long distance was not beautiful. People lie about that. It was missed calls, bad Wi-Fi, late-night time zone math, and both of us learning that love does not become less real just because it has to survive through screens for a while. But it also forced us to be honest. We couldn't hide in routine anymore. We had to say things, hard things, small things, ugly things, ordinary things. She told me when Seattle made her feel powerful. I told her when Chicago made me feel alone. She sent me pictures of transit stops and terrible apartment layouts. I sent her photos of every city project that made me think of her. 6 months in, I took the remote rotation. Not to follow her blindly, to work on municipal infrastructure projects I actually cared about, with a team based partly in the Northwest. It was the first career decision I made that felt like expansion instead of escape. When I landed in Seattle with 2 suitcases and no heroic speech prepared, Sienna was waiting at arrivals with coffee in one hand and a sign that said, Temporary roommate application. Under review. I laughed so hard people looked over. She lowered the sign and said, Your interview begins now. Do I have references? Unfortunately, I am one. A year later, we got our first apartment together on purpose. No accidental lease, no mutual friend, no pretending, just us choosing. The place was small, overpriced, and had one window that stuck when it rained, which in Seattle meant almost always. Sienna made a color-coded moving spreadsheet. I ignored it once and was placed on probation. 2 years later, she got hired full-time by the city. I joined a public infrastructure nonprofit. We argued about urban policy over dinner like other couples argued about vacation plans. We adopted a cat that liked her better and judged me professionally. We bought a new lamp finally, but kept the crooked one in the corner because some ugly things earned sentimental protection. 4 years after the night I came back from that date, I proposed in our kitchen. Not at a restaurant, not on a mountain. In the kitchen, where all our best and worst conversations had always happened. Sienna was barefoot reading a city zoning report at the counter, wearing one of my old sweatshirts like she had legal ownership. I set a mug of tea beside her, waited until she looked up and said, "Stay with me tonight?" She frowned. That is objectively a weird proposal opening. I wasn't finished. You paused for effect. I did. Continue. So I got down on one knee. Her face changed before I even opened the box. I mean every night, I said. Every city, every apartment, every argument, every version of home we have to build from scratch. Stay with me. Sienna covered her mouth. Then she laughed and cried at the same time. Yes, she said, too fast, again. And somehow that was my favorite part. Years later, whenever people asked how we got together, I usually said, I went on one bad date. Sienna always corrected me, it wasn't a bad date. It was a useful control group. That was my wife. Still sharp, still impossible. Still the woman who taught me that home is not always the place you stay because it's easy. Sometimes home is the person who loves you clearly enough to let you leave for the right reasons. And still gives you a reason to come back. What would you have done if your roommate heard you say you had just gotten back from a date, then suddenly confessed she loved you more than anyone else could? And have you ever realized too late that the person who felt like home had been right beside you all along? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.